Let's bring in Beth Bailey, journalist, presenter of the Afghan Project Podcast. Beth, great to have you on the programme this evening. Welcome to Fronts 24. First of all, outline what's going on as of today.
Sure. And thanks so much for having me. This is a really important topic. So about 11,700 Afghans are losing their work authorizations and their temporary protected status. That is going to impact their ability to stay. No one's really sure what's going to happen for those allies next, if they'll receive a notice to appear in immigration court, for instance. And that's actually a smaller subset that really illustrates how complex the situation is for our allies, because there's another group that will soon come up for reauthorization as well, the humanitarian parole recipients who all came over during that exfiltration from Hamid Karzai International Airport. And they're not being talked about as much right now because TPS has been the priority. But the zero units that you mentioned are actually covered under humanitarian parole, not TPS. And all of these things right now are so uncertain, and it's really causing a lot of mental difficulties within our community of allies and within the volunteer communities and advocate communities who have spent 4 years trying to create some kind of stability for the people who worked with us in Afghanistan during almost 2 decades of war.
Let's try to understand the differences here, Beth. So you have the zero units, as I understand it. This is a group of roughly at the time of the evacuation from Kabul, those scenes we were seeing, about 9,000 members of that unit, Afghans, were moved from their bases, and they were helping the evacuation, basically securing the area. And they have been given, in the majority, a humanitarian parole is the category. But we're also talking about this temporary status for other interpreters. And again, you mentioned about 11,000 of those. So just split those up for us first and what the zero unit did.
Sure. So the zero units provided that initial protection when we came into Hamid Karzai International Airport. They secured the zone. Then they also helped to secure the perimeter and to bring their countrymen, our personnel, and Americans who were in Afghanistan at the time, and many foreigners into Hamid Karzai International Airport so that they could get out. And the zero units were among the last people to be brought out, along with our American soldiers, Marines, et cetera. They came in here on humanitarian parole, just like all of the Afghans who were exfiltrated from Afghanistan in August of 2021. And that parole lasts for 2 years. It was re-extended in August of 2023, and now it's up for re-extension in August of 2025. And about half of the zero units, because the zero units can apply for special immigrant visas because of their service alongside the CIA. They qualify for applying for that. Half of them have received SIV so far, but half of them are still waiting on processing. SIV processing is supposed to take 9 months. So you can find that obviously they've been waiting a lot longer than that. And my sources within FOML, which is a group that's specifically helping the zero units, it's a group of former CIA officers who all banded together to support these 9,000 Afghans. They are in talks to try to help, but they were told by the Biden administration that the priority was to get other Afghans out of Afghanistan rather than to speed up processing for Afghans who were safe in the U.S. And what they didn't understand is if you don't have a green card, if you don't have status and the ability to feel like you belong and you're safe, it's a very difficult life to continue living that way for now almost 4 years.
So you have one section group, as you described, in jeopardy, as you say, all sorts of reasons given by the Biden administration, the priority for getting more people out rather than speeding up their case. Now that's in limbo. What happens to those under this, the TPS, this temporary residency? Tell me about those in that group. I'm guessing we're talking about interpreters. How many we're talking about? How many managed to get successful kind of permanent residency? And if they didn't, what happens to them from today?
So there are, I think I said 11,700 is the number I keep hearing. And some of them do have asylum processing. Some of them have applied for green cards. Some of them are likely SIV applicants who have been waiting in that interminable process. A lot of the people who applied for TPS came over during the evacuation too. So there are TPS applicants who also have humanitarian parole, or TPS recipients who have humanitarian parole. There's a lot of overlap and multiple protections. So some people will have that extra month of humanitarian parole to protect them. Some of them will have that in-process asylum to protect them, and some of them will no longer have protections. And that's the real difficult part. If you don't have the ability to work, how can you support yourself in the country? And a lot of resettlement groups have been impacted in the last 6 months. They haven't been able to raise as much to support Afghans. And so I can see there being a crisis of funding coming up. And then also, just if they get a notice to appear in court, how are they going to defend themselves against deportation?
But the line that it's safer now, that the Taliban are back in power, and somebody who spent as a correspondent years going back and forth to Afghanistan in the early 2010s, to Lashkar, to Kabul, speaking to those who were helping the British as well as ISAF forces as well, who said, had horrendous stories of their families being killed and the risks that they were taking. Tell me about the conversations that you're having, the level, if there is a level of kind of anger from Americans, what kind of volume that's making right now, and what you're hearing on your podcast.
Well, the people I speak to have been advocates for 4 years in this, and they are just, they're so overwhelmed. It's a really difficult time right now. And I think that there is no safety in Afghanistan, to answer your question. If you look at the ICC arrest warrants for the two leaders of the Taliban, or Hibatullah Akhundzada and Abdul Hakim Haqqani, this week, that ICC arrest warrant cites murder, imprisonment, torture, rape, and enforced disappearances, as well as for any women who worked with us. There's the crimes against humanity of persecution against girls and women, and just allies of girls and women. There's no safety in Afghanistan. There's not a month that passes that I don't hear about an ally being murdered by the Taliban. The reprisal campaign that they started in August 2020, before August 2021, continues today. It's a very difficult place to go to. And for the arguments that the administration has made about the better economy in Afghanistan, all of the advocates in my sphere completely question that, especially when you've seen 800,000 Afghans deported from Iran this year, with 500,000 expelled just in the last 2 to 3 weeks, and then 205,000 Afghans deported from between April and June. And after that, I've heard 5,000 a day being deported through Torkham now. So this is a crisis.
Beth, we'll keep on to this. There's a lot of information, a lot of triage, constant conflict, but we won't let this one lie. We'll speak to you again soon. For now, thank you, Beth Bailey, journalist and podcast host of Afghan Project.